Chancellor Gray, you are a chancellor. What made you pick Chancery Court as opposed to the circuit courts?
I think the answer is because it was 1986, the election. There was already a circuit judge, and this presented an opportunity for me, and some of the lawyers encouraged me to run for the chancellor, and because they had experienced, I guess, the divorce court, and so that was the reason. It was just because it came open at the time it did, and just.
And in your years, you've had the opportunity to sit for other judges across the state. You've sat as a circuit judge in some counties?
Yes, in Sumner County and in other counties.
You mentioned during the break that you sat in a criminal court, too. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes.
Was there a case, a memorable case from the criminal side that you found unusual?
Yes, we have a local rule, well, unusual. We have a local rule regarding cell phones, and they're not to be on, they're not to be in the courtroom. It's a local rule. And I was doing this criminal jury trial, and individual was called to testify. John Garrett is his name, and he's big in the history of Sumner County. He knows it. And he's making testimony because it's an aggravated assault, and John's making testimony, and a telephone goes off, and it's ringing, 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 and he's on the witness stand. He looks down, he reaches in his pocket, he takes out the cell phone, he opens it up, puts it up, and begins a conversation. And he says, "Look, I'm in court right now. I told y'all I'd be up there as soon as I finish up court." It's just some of them getting together, older Americans. So I'm thinking, so I tell resume your questioning. And we finished up, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this individual here? I know he didn't have any bad intent or anything, so I told the jury, and for the record, that this court had the right to make local rules, and we had a local rule regarding cell phones. And that I said, "Mr. Garrett, how old are you?" And he said, "I'm 82. I said, "We're going to change and have a new rule that if you're 82 years or older, you can open up your cell phone in the courtroom." And I think the jury was happy with that because we didn't let it go unnoticed, but no reprimand, no getting mad.
That's a good story. Tell me how you came to Sumner County and the years that you've spent there. What has that done for your view of Gallatin?
Well, I came to Sumner County for volunteer state community college job and to go to law school. And the county, or this county of the city of Gallatin instead of county of Sumner, city of Gallatin had in the past not sought industry, had not tried to, they wanted to just stay as they were, and for years they did it. The leadership opposed the steam plant, which brings in good money for jobs. In addition to the steam plant that was opposed, there was another company that came in against the will of people. It's reported that the Governor Clement, when Governor Clement was running for office or in office, might have been running for re-election. He came to Gallatin and spoke, and they were building the interstate, and he said we can bring that closer and make Gallatin a really growing town. We can map it out, and some of the leadership expressed opposition and said they didn't want it close, and so he just said okay. So they just left it where it is. But in the last several years, the county has, the city of Gallatin has worked more and harder for the citizens and has done a good job. And they no longer have that attitude. That goes into one thing about Thomas Goodall. He was city attorney for a long time, and he told me of an incident where industry was going to employ, was coming into town, that they had the name of it, but they pay well and offer good jobs, and there had been negotiation on things that would be done that the city had agreed on, and Haganese was the company, Haganese, and they had made an agreement when it came, and the mayor at the time told Haganese, we're not paying what we told you, because we're not going to pay for it at all. If you want a line spur, it's going to be on your own. And Thomas said I had to sit down and have a talk to him, that we had an agreement, and he agreed with it at the time, and he needed to get the aldermen together and have a vote, and said you can take it up with them. You're going to breach your contract, you're going to breach your agreement. But Thomas was good at being able to give some directions and not make you feel like he was fussing.
And as you talk about Sumner County, you're getting ready to retire. Do you plan to stay there in Sumner County?
Yes, I do. I plan to stay there where my wife is, Janice Sandlin Gray. She made a lot of decisions or helped me make those joint decisions. But for example, I had been a greeter at the First United Methodist Church in Gallatin for a number of years, and always went to the early church. And we were only a couple of years apart on the number. She had been a member of Hendersonville United Methodist Church a couple of years longer than I had been a member in Gallatin, and or more. And she thought that it was only fair that where we've lived the longest, I've been here longer in Sumner County, that we go to Hendersonville Church. And so I went to Hendersonville Church. So, and I don't regret that at all. We're not, I'm just, but we're both involved. She was involved with a Sunday school class. That's a very fine group of people. The Poe Williams Sunday School class that has about 70 members or more. A lot of times we have more than 70 in there.
You're going to stay in Gallatin, go to church in Hendersonville?
No. Oh. We're moving. I probably should. She had seen a house that she liked, and she didn't like where she was living now because the old address on Hillcrest was setting out from town, and she wanted something closer to downtown Hendersonville, and she had bought a lot and had a lot and was having papers or architectural plans drawn to build a house there, and then a house became available. It's a small subdivision, has 32 homes, and
you'll be moving
anyway,
there?
So she talked me into leaving Gallatin and coming to Hendersonville.
You have, I think, not only volunteered in church, but you've also volunteered for a number of historical societies, the Bledsoe Lick Historical Society, which is a fort from the Revolution, from when Tennessee was
Well, it was,
run over with Indians.
yes, that's right. And the Sumner County Historical Society was, I think that was the first organization. And
You're
it
the
was
past
up and
president?
running. I'm past president of Sumner County. But I regret many times when things get done and get torn down or get removed. Halfway House is one of those examples, halfway between Nashville and Gallatin. It was in Hendersonville, and it was torn down, and we regret that very
Are you
much.
still active with the Rosemont Restoration Foundation?
Yes, we've accomplished a lot with Rosemont. The people, once they get in, I forgot, they're having a fundraiser December 6th, I think, 6th and 7th. It's the mantles of Rosemont. And Rosemont was built by Judge Guild was his name, and it was built prior to the Civil War.
1828.
1828, I'm sorry, I said prior to the Civil War.
That is before the Civil War.
Yeah.
Judge Josephus Con Guild.
That's right. And there's a story about his son, who was in the Confederacy, crossing over into Union lines up in the Carthage area and came back home just because they told him, I think it wasn't a runaway, he wasn't a runaway from the service. They told him they could go home for a few days. And his little boy, the soldiers, the Union soldiers would pick at him. They'd pick at the little boy and play with him. I mean, they were, and he liked them, although, and he would respond back sometimes. But his mother, of course, the father came home to see his child, and his mother was afraid that if he saw his father, told it was his father, or his father was there, that he might, because he would already tell the soldiers, my father gonna kill you, and he could have said something that would give away the fact that the father had come behind enemy lines. So he crawled out. She went down to the front of the house and started playing with him out in front of the house. And he crawled on his stomach out onto the porch, second level porch, and saw his son.
Well, with these volunteer services, one of the things that you've done through the Rotary Club is the Christmas for Kids each December, and I think that's coming up rather soon.
It is.
Tell us what you do for Christmas, that you and your fellow Rotarians make Christmas for a number of children and their families. What do you all do?
What we do is that we have well, first of all, we want to give them money and let them shop. And we want the goal to be appreciation that somebody helped you, and to learn about giving and liking to give. So we have a range of, you got to be at least 5 years old, and you can be up to 15. And we raise money and we give each child $150 that they can spend any way they want to.
For gifts for other people?
They're encouraged to buy for other people, but they're also encouraged to buy for themselves. And the technology things we don't let them buy. And we had a fundraiser, and also each Rotarian makes a $150 contribution or pledge to, and we give out, sell the tickets, and we raise money. And we had that a couple of Saturday nights ago, and we raised $54,000. It's amazing that we are able to do that. My job has nothing to do with the raising of the money, although
Well, you do make your little contribution, I think, don't you?
I make that minimum contribution, and then I contact the schools and get the names of the children and the families.
And do you take them shopping?
Yes, yeah, we take them shopping. That's where they get spent.
Must be really amazing to
$150.
watch these children go shop.
It is, and Walmart's been very kind because they open up and let us come in early because they want us out early too. They want us to be gone maybe by 10 o'clock. They open up their room where the workers relax. They open that up to us, and so we're trying to get these names, and that's what I do. I just get the names and give the list, and then we have some procedure that we follow. We let the Interact Club, which is a high school Rotary club, come and help us with shopping. So each child has a shopper, so it's not like they don't have some guidance. They have some guidance, and a lot of the kids like to buy, and the first time they bought something for somebody else. Of course, usually the first person they want to buy for is mama, and I think that's great. And then, or grandmother, and they are told that you'll be able to buy things for other members of your family. And if you've got a little brother that's 4 or 3, buy him something.
You served as president of the Sumner County Historical Society, and I know that Gallatin was named after
Albert Gallatin.
Albert Gallatin, who was Secretary of the Treasury for, I think it was Jefferson and Madison. But a lot of the history of Sumner County, I think, has been written about by Walter Durham. Did you have an opportunity to get to know Mr. Durham?
Yes, I did. I actually met Walter Durham when I was with Martin College in Pulaski. He wrote to me about any information that I had or could gain about Thomas Martin, who the college was named for, and he was working on a book and told me that. And then when I moved up there later, he invited me to a book signing, and I had already bought his book, but I think we have all of his books. And
he was the historian for the state of Tennessee, I believe.
Historian he was, yes.
And that leads me, when you said that you have this book, to kind of my wrap-up questions, and that has to do with the books that you're reading. You told me that you finished The Killing of Lincoln by Bill O'Reilly, and that is in keeping with your interest in history about the Civil War. What have you been reading recently?
Recently, Janice had gone over to her family that lives in Wheal, and then they went shopping. And I think it was either in Lynchburg. They also went over to Lynchburg, and she bought a book that is one that I want to follow up or go back on, and I need to do that on Google. The book is about the Civil War and some misconceptions about the Civil War, and and he talks about people's what people did. I was trying to think of a good example, but anyway, in his book, and then it was interesting. There were no women mentioned in the book, so I looked back to see what other books that he had, not on Google, but on the cover, and I think maybe he had one in which he included some women. I want to see if I can find that and read that, but For example, I always thought that and you'll tell me what his name is, the man who shot Lincoln. Anyway, I always thought it was just one of those things that he planned all by himself. And
John Wilkes Booth?
John Wilkes Booth, that's right, John Wilkes Booth. I thought it was just John Wilkes Booth, and he just planned to kill Lincoln, and the opportunity came, he jumped at the opportunity. But I learned a lot of things, that he actually had been out working and trying
Actively.
to get people to...
They were going to kill Seward, and they were going to kill the vice president. They were
Yes.
going to have a mass assassination.
That's what he was going to do. And he had gone to Canada, I believe. The one person had gone up to Canada who claimed not to be in the
Conspiracy.
in the conspiracy, yes. And there's a book out also about, and there's a movie to it, and we actually did, it was the woman who had, the Army had accused her of being a conspirator, and they wanted to know where her son was, and she wouldn't tell them, and she was the first woman executed by the federal government. And Surratt, trying to remember her first name.
I think that's correct.
And we actually did a continuing legal education. The Palace Theater in Gallatin let us use their facilities, and we had David Rabin, and we had Penny White, and we had D. Gay, and then we had another person who had just recently moved into Nashville, who had
David
spent...
Rabin? David Rabin was the criminal
judge.
criminal lawyer on
Criminal
that,
lawyer was on
the
it.
panel.
And then we got I think he was with Bone, I think.
Charles Bone?
And he had been in the JAG Corps and had many years in the JAG Corps. And I thought it was only fair that we have somebody from the JAG Corps, because it was the Army that made the decision on the general. So we had a good attendance. We also opened the doors to other people because we showed the movie. It's a good movie. We're trying to get, and I've been to show it out at Vanderbilt when they have their movie night at the University Club.
There is a book called The New Perspectives on the Civil War. I don't know if you've had a chance, Myths and Realities of the National Conflict. If you've had
I haven't seen that.
That may be one that you might be interested in, because it follows up on a lot of what you've been talking about. Have you got some books that you are planning to read coming in?
No, I don't. I don't have one that I'm planning to read, I don't think. I've been...
In 2014, you will take with you a world of experience on the bench. Would you tell a young person today that they should study the law and become a judge, knowing what you've been through the past 30 years on the bench and the changes that you've seen?
Yes, I would recommend, and I recommend becoming lawyers. As a matter of fact, on one occasion we had 8th graders from schools, local school, and the mother of 8th grade young man is an attorney. She practices law, and I went in and I said, people are going to tell you that if you become a lawyer you can't make any money, they're going to tell you we've got too many lawyers. And I'm here to tell you that law is still a good profession to go into. And I'll tell you something else. I believe that it's lawyers who return their telephone calls who make money. Lawyers who don't return their telephone calls are not going to make any money. So it just depends. Well, his mother then says every Saturday in the morning he'll say, "Did you make your telephone calls?" But I do think that law is a good profession. The professor who spoke to us at the recent Judicial conference in his speech gave information that makes it look a little grim, but he then picks up on it because we're getting overloaded the law schools and they're not cutting back. But I think it's a good profession, and I'm surprised sometimes about people that don't want to come in the courtroom, but they make a lot of money anyway because they work some other way, and they all don't come in the courtroom.
Transactional lawyers. Chancellor Gray, I want to thank you for your service, and I want to thank you for the time you've given to this project. I know that the legal history project will benefit by this interview for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.